It's kind of hard for me to believe that 35 years ago in 1987, I got my start in gaming. Now, I played stuff on my Colecovision and the Atari 2600 before that, and I'd done some time with the Oregon Trail, but for me, the one that really started it all was this guy right here, and this is my original NES. Now, yeah, it might look a little bit decorated now, and it sure as hell doesn't work anymore, but it's still a console that I adore and something I look back fondly on to this day. So 35 years is a nice arbitrary round number. I think it's a good time to look back at the 10 games that I was playing the most in 1987. I wasn't a kid that was a fan of horror stuff growing up. It just didn't appeal to me. I still don't like being scared. So Castlevania was kind of a hard sell to me, but playing it absolutely captivated me. This was amazing gameplay with a spectacular look and one of the best soundtracks on the NES. And I just fell in love with this game. It was deeply immersive. The characters were huge on the screen. Well, not by today's standards maybe, but back in 1987, these guys were massive. The monsters were scary looking. Simon looked cool as hell, and there was all these amazing creature designs that I was familiar with and I loved. Like, I knew that those were Medusa heads. I was a big fan of Greek mythology. I liked the creature from the Black Lagoon. That was like the only horror thing I liked. So seeing the Gillmen jump out of the basement in the castle in the first stage was pretty awesome. There were zombies. There were these huge bats. There were mummies. It was something that was familiar and not threatening. I could still play it and have a good time. Now, never beaten this game. It's incredibly hard, but it's something that I still go back to and I still enjoy. And I think it was one of those games where I was so lucky to play it when it launched, because if I had missed it, I don't think I would love the series as much as I do today. I know I'm in the minority on this one, and I don't care. I love Ice Climber. And it's not because I'm good at it. I don't think anyone's good at this game. I don't think you're designed to be good at this game. It's so hard. But I just love the game. I just love the basic idea of what the game is. You just go up. That's it. And you can bop some animals with a hammer on the way, and I think that's fine. I mean, PETA probably doesn't like it, but I don't really care. It's just a fun game. It's so simple and it's so straightforward, and the challenge that is built into it by having the jump be a little bit off, like you drift a little bit and you don't jump quite as far if you're not moving, so it's hard to really get the pinpoint accuracy that you need, which just kind of adds to why I like this game so much. It's something that was always a challenge. It wasn't like being able to master a level in Super Mario Bros. Or memorizing a dungeon in Zelda. Ice Climber was just consistently difficult. And it's something that, to this day, I love Nana and Popo. They're my mains in Super Smash Bros. So the game really made an impression on me from the time I first played it. And while I'll never be good at it, it's something I'm always going to enjoy. I might be one of the few people that actually played Donkey Kong Jr. before they ever played Donkey Kong. I might have played the original Donkey Kong back on the 2600 or the ColecoVision, but it's not a memory that's sticking out. But Donkey Kong Jr., oh, that one I remember because I loved that game. I really loved the kind of different climb mechanics they put into it, where if you were holding on to one, you went up slowly, but you could drop fast. But if you were holding on to two, you climbed quickly, but dropped slowly. And it's something that was duplicated in a recent game that I really loved, Donut Dodo. And I really think that Donkey Kong Jr. is, while it's incredibly basic in its design, because it's, I mean, again, this was the mid-'80s. We didn't have these huge sprawling open worlds or anything like that. It was basic platforming, get to the end and count your blessings that you didn't die. It's something that just the design work and the music and the overall fun factor of, you know, recognizing the patterns of the way that the animals are moving or the way the birds are flying and knowing that this one's going to drop an egg, but this one isn't, and being able to time your movements to hit the fruit to drop on the enemy to give you a little bit more free movement throughout the level. It's just such a brilliant design. It's simple, but it's effective. And I think Donkey Kong Jr. is a great example of what simplistic but effective design work can be in a video game. I think Excitebike was the first racing game I really got into. Now, I had played Pole Position and I'd played a few racing games in arcades, but Excitebike was the first one that I really got captivated by, and it's interesting because this kind of led to me loving Motocross Maniacs in 1980. We'll get to 1989 in a couple of months, but Excitebike to me was just such a hugely opportunistic game, and it just captivated me. It was so simple to understand. You had a drive button and you had a drive faster button, and you just had to avoid the obstacles. But the real fun with Excitebike came from the jumps and being able to launch yourself over these massive pits and just find your way through these levels to make sure you got to the end as fast as possible. It's such a basic game. It does everything well, though. Like, it's hard, but not so hard that you want to stop playing, but not so easy that you don't want to try. It's a really fine balance of what a game should be, specifically a racing game, and I think Excitebike just holds up so well. I played this one a lot when I was a kid, and it's something I go back to. I'm not going to say regularly, but every 4 or 5 months I'll be like, you know what, I want to play Excitebike, and I'll pop it in, and I'll have a good old time. Remember how I said the sprites in Castlevania were big? Imagine how blown my mind was when I put in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Everyone in the mid-'80s and the late '80s knew who Mike Tyson was. Even if you weren't a boxing fan, you knew who he was. He was that pervasive in pop culture. And when I found out that he had a video game, this was one of the first ones I really remember asking my mom for and saying, I want Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! I want to play it. Because, again, everyone knew who Iron Mike was. And what could have been a very easy-to-mail-in licensed title that wasn't enjoyable and didn't do anything special, instead we got an absolutely brilliant arcade boxing game that works on every single level. The character designs are massive, other than Little Mac. The look of the game is fantastic. The gameplay is precision but fun. The music is wonderful. Every character has their own entrance music. It's like proto-WWE. And the challenge is through the roof. I've beaten Tyson once in my life, and it's still one of the best gaming achievements I've ever had. I'm terrible at this game, and I think everyone's terrible at this game. This is Spelunker, if you've never played it. This is an unforgiving mess of a game. The idea is strong, going down into a cave and exploring to find gems and money and blowing up rocks and things like that. I think it's great. It's probably why I like Spelunky so much. But Spelunker? Oh my god, this game. The fall mechanic is unforgiving. If you fall more than like 3 pixels, you're dead. The jumping is so precise, it's bad to play. It's just not a fun game. So why did I keep playing it so often? Well, it's because one of the few cartridges I actually owned, so it was something that I went back to pretty regularly. And eventually, it sort of clicked. This is a game to me that wasn't designed for an 8-year-old to play. This is something that you needed to have a little bit of patience with, and not just the immediate forgiveness or the immediate reward of that twitchy throwing a fireball in Mario or launching your sword in Zelda. It was something that you needed to kind of think and methodically get your way through to make sure that you were lining things up correctly. Now, as an adult, I can play it, and while I still think it's a mess of a game and the overall design is unforgiving and that doesn't really make for a great gameplay experience, I can at least enjoy myself. And this is Commando from Capcom. This is the game that launched a love affair with run-and-gun shooters that I really think stemmed directly from here. It was either this or Jackal, but I owned both of them. Jackal was a couple years later. That one really perfected things, but Commando to me was something that I just absolutely enjoyed and did something really clever with what is a pretty basic design premise. Now, is it great? Playing it today, no. It's very rough around the edges. It's overwhelmingly difficult at times, and like unforgivingly so, which kind of makes it not fun to play. But back then, it was something where when I beat a level, it was a genuine sense of accomplishment, and I really felt like I had done something kind of special. There's been sequels, of course. We've had Bionic Commando, and there was an actual Xbox Live Arcade game called, I believe, Wolf of the Battlefield Commando 3. which I really loved, that took a lot of those design tropes from the first Commando and really plussed them and perfected them. So if you enjoyed Commando, but you don't want to go back to something that's a little unforgiving, I suggest you check that one out. But this game here is something that I really enjoyed when I was younger, but I can look at it nowadays and kind of go, yeah, I did enjoy it when I was younger, but I'm going to appreciate this one from afar. I don't need to go back and play this one too often just because there's so much that came after it that does it better, whether it's Jackal or Gunsmoke or even sequels in its own series like Wolf of the Battlefield. It's a great starting point, and it's really nice to see the place setting that Capcom put in play here, but it got so much better the further down the road we went. This game right here, Elevator Action, used to drive me absolutely insane when I was younger until everything clicked. And then it immediately became one of my favorite games. I didn't understand what the hell I was supposed to do at first. Like, this was just such an obscure, weird game. And I think I got it and I lost the instruction manual, so I didn't realize what everything was supposed to be going on and what I was supposed to do. But once I figured out that, hey, I can duck, hey, I can shoot, oh, now everything made sense. This turned into a game of kind of steeplechase, really, where you were moving around these levels and trying to avoid the bad guys and find your way to the red doors so you could find the dossiers to get to the exit. It's just a basic game. There's nothing super challenging about it or super advanced about it. It's just fun. Like, the stuff it does, it just works. And I'm not going to tell you that it's the best game out there, and I don't really think it holds up to this day, but there's still something kind of inherently charming about it, especially the NES version, because everyone just looks so dopey. It's pretty fun. I really enjoy Elevator Action. I wish that I had given it more of a fair shot when I first got it. It was something that took a few months for it to really land for me, to really get into it. And when like I said, when I did finally understand what the hell I was supposed to do, it just clicked and I had a blast with it. I mean, of course I was playing Super Mario Bros. Everybody was playing Super Mario Bros. Despite the fact that this released 2 years earlier, this was still, as Macho Man Randy Savage would say, the cream of the crop. It was incredible. And while it has not aged terribly well, and there are definitely some aspects of the game that are more frustrating than they are fun, and that was also the case back then, but we were just happy to have what we had, it's still something that I look back at fondly. This was the one that launched everything for me. I got the NES that had the pack-in of Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt, and as much as I loved Duck Hunt, Super Mario Bros. Was the thing for me. That really informed a love of a genre that I still enjoy to this day. Platformers are still one of my favorite genres in all of games. There was something just enthralling about the game. The design was perfectly simple, but it was unlike anything I had really ever played at the time. I had played Pitfall on the 2600, but Super Mario Bros. Was the one that really made platforming just change for me and made me love the genre. It doesn't really hold up, like I said, today, but I can still look back at it fondly, and I always like when I play it and muscle memory kind of takes over, because I played it so much back then, like finding the 1-up right at the start of World 1-1. I just do that automatically now, and that's such a neat thing to experience and remember that I can't help but love it. Shocking absolutely no one, the one I spent the most time with was, of course, The Legend of Zelda. This game blew my mind as a kid. I couldn't believe the massive world that Hyrule was. The variety of enemies, the incredible boss fights, the variety of items, the different terrain types. It was something that, to me, was every fantasy movie and every fantasy novel that I loved as a kid come to life. I still think that this game does some unbelievably ambitious things that no one has ever really equaled. And the things that it did set up so much in the franchise of Zelda that I can't help but love it. I still find myself playing this game from time to time and just kind of losing myself in the rhythm and the cadence of what Zelda is. And it's just such a great game. It still looks good to this day. The sound is fantastic. There's so much that it does beautifully well. Now, it's an unforgiving title, like a lot of classic NES games are, and there's a lot to it where I look at it from a modern design sensibility and I look at, well, I wouldn't have done that. But in 1985, you weren't going to get better than this. The Legend of Zelda is absolutely brilliant and is by far the game I spent the most time playing that year. And I still play it to this day. So yeah, there's some strange games on this list. I don't think anyone was really putting a lot of time into Spelunker, but it was one of those games that I actually owned, so I played it a lot back in 1987. There were other games I rented at the time, like Arkanoid or Spy Hunter, and those would have been great to include on this list, but honestly, these are the ones that I owned. These are the ones that I put the most time into. Let me know in the comments down below, what were the games you played the most when you started gaming on the NES? Love to hear what games meant the most to you the first year you had your console. Hey, if you enjoyed talking about retro games, why don't you give me a like down below, give me a subscription. I would love to have you stick around. Until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.